I'm Trek with 2Ks. Buenas noches, buenos tardes, GnGs. My name is Trek with 2Ks, and it is the new year. It is 2026. Um, and yeah, I'm finally here. I'm finally here. It has definitely been a what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. The last couple of weeks of December wasn't holding my attention. Well, and it's not to say that things didn't happen, but it just, I don't know, it wasn't working for me. And then other things was going on too. So, Um, but yeah, it is 2026. Year is off and popping. If you have been living under a rock, like I don't know what to tell you. Um, it's wild, man. Like here we are. It's year 2 of the administration. Um, Crypto in general is having a certain amount of adoption. At the same time, might argue that it's more of an absorption thing happening. I'm going in the camp of absorption right now for how I see things playing out. I don't remember what. Sorry, I'm over here trying to get these windows in order. You know how it is. It is a process. It's a one-person show, right? I don't even know why that's on there. But anywho, if you're on the Twitter side, aka X side of it, you're seeing the post that was talking about, hey, I got X number of Trump related things to get into. It isn't about the political side of it. It's more about the things that have been coming out of the administration in relation to crypto. And so that's kind of where my attention is. Let me back up. For the folks who don't know, you might be new to this. This isn't my regular day. I generally do this on Mondays at around, I'm not even going to hold 8 o'clock anymore. I may as well just start saying like 9 o'clock on a Monday night. And the basic idea is I go through Twitter posts that catch my attention and scratch my brain. And then I come over here and I talk about it. And I talk about it from the perspective of someone who's been in the crypto space for a while. So I'm not talking about VR stuff. I'm not talking about, quote, geopolitics. I'm not talking about some fire that happened in Switzerland on the New Year's. I'm talking about the crypto related posts that scratch my brain. X amount of the times the stuff I talk aren't even the trending topic things. But ironically enough, after a certain amount of time, they tend to come up again somewhere in the news storyline. There's a couple of things one thing in particular that I have been talking about for more than a year. I want to say probably more than 2 years. And I seen a post today and I was like, yo, when I said this, no one believed me. I'm not gonna say no one believed me. I shouldn't say it that way because there's people who was like, all right, like, well, if you brought it up, then it must have happened at some point. But the other thing was like, it got so muffled in the American news cycle, but it was 100% a thing. And it's interesting to see how it is being used now to get back at Venezuela. But anywho, that is the short of what Trek with 2Ks Live is, which generally comes on a Monday at around the 09, well, not 09, that is 2100 hour, aka 9 p.m. for my non-gang folks, in case you don't know. For the folks who've been around for a minute, you know what it's about when we say gang. And so yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like there was much of like necessarily techie things that like caught my attention over the last couple of hours, but a couple of things here and there did. It was more again, there was I think the last episode I covered was talking about the Panopticon, and it just I feel like as I move through 2026, I'm just seeing more of the digital panopticon being exposed, like the curtain is being lifted back more, if that makes sense. If you don't know what a panopticon is, it is a prison design where you have the correction officer, as we would call it here in the States, the CO. They sit at the center of this jail, and the way that the cell blocks are done, they're designed in a circular manner. So think of a bicycle wheel where you have the hub at the center. That's where the security officer is, and then the inmates would be on the rim, right, the outskirts, all facing in. The idea is that you don't know when you're being watched. You just know that at the center is where the person is supposed to be watching you. When you put that in the digital context, think about this. How do you know when you are being watched in the digital context? Do you actually see how someone operating a camera that you don't see the camera, even though like you can go some places and they'll be like, oh, security cameras are recording everything. You have the apparent stuff, but the idea in the panopticon is you don't know when you're being observed. And so on the psychological end of it is that you as the prisoner, the inmate being observed and not knowing when you're being observed, you eventually curtail your behavior, your pattern, your activities. Why? Because you don't want to warrant the ire of the security force for doing something that is wrong, that is, bad behavior or whatever. Same thing applies here. And when we look at how our financial system is being integrated and grows as far as this digital side is concerned, that's what we're getting, folks. The panopticon is 100% expanding, and crypto is definitely for how it is being absorbed back into TradeFi, in my humble, small, random guy on the internet perspective, that is what we're seeing. It is expanding the panopticon largely because there is a transparency layer being pushed on the technology that says, hey, we need to know exactly who you are, where you are, and when, or whatever it is you're doing. And it's not just a matter of like, oh, well, it has to be today. Like, on a total side note, is anybody paying attention to what is going on with the flock camera situation right now, which arguably eventually will play into the digital panopticon? Because it's not just about the financial activity. That's not the it if you're looking at it in the financial aspect, that's what it sounds like, or that's what it might come off as. When you take into account how much of your financial activity is tracked, traced, and stuff. But in the bigger picture, way more than just the financial activity of what you do. So anywho, let's start running into some of these posts because I really spent way too much time just sitting around lollygagging on stuff in Twitter. Yeah, Twitter, like when I be trying to get these out, is the episodes out is just like a horrible thing. I swear to goodness. But anywho, all right, let's jump into this. Move you over. I'm gonna swap that out in a minute. All right, so this first post here um is from Bitcoin Historian. And just in, CNNBC just said live that the government could seize and hold Venezuela's Bitcoin. Now, in my mind, that's not necessarily the bigger story, right? Um, in my mind, the bigger story and what she talks about, she goes into this thing, and I don't know who the lady is exactly. I don't watch CNNBC, but she talks about how Venezuela, when we were going through, I believe it's the Biden administration, or it might have been Obama's administration. Um, they were doing the avoiding the sanctions, so they were using Tether and Bitcoin to get around the American sanctions. Yo, on a side note, but related to sanctions, why did I have someone try to tell me that a sanction is is a tax that you would put on another entity? Like, I had a whole big back and forth at my job about this. So it's like, wait, how did you come up with the idea that a sanction is putting a tax on someone else? And then they try to tell me that, like, well, no, if you look it up, like, that's what it'll say. That's what Google says. Of course, someone else comes in and they do actually look it up while we're having our back and forth. And it's just like, well, no, it says nothing about a tax in a sanction. And then they get into like the actual verbiage of what a sanction is. And I'm like, that's what I'm explaining to you. So you saying, no, a sanction is is a tax that you put on as a punishment. I'm like, well, it's a punishment, but it's not a tax. That's not how you mess with the local population. But anywho, um, to this point, in regards to Venezuela was using crypto to circumvent the American-led sanction. And I remember when the story first came out, I forgot the name of the site I was using at the time when I was doing the news aggregation the way I was doing it. And this was brought up. It was a when I tell you it was such a quick blip of like it was in the news cycle one day, less than 24 hours. I didn't see none of the major crypto platforms pick the story up. Didn't see none of like the mainstream, and even though I don't pay attention to mainstream stuff like that, for some of the places that I move around, like at times like CNN and stuff like that would be on. No one talked about this. Lo and behold, I think it was like maybe a year or two later, the guy that they had in Venezuela who was in charge of the oil program, the oil trade program. All of a sudden, this guy's cartel connected. This guy's doing side business. This guy, da 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 da. Eventually, they had to get the dude out of the position. And I don't know if I remember right. I think he went to jail or whatever. The reason why I bring this up is because now this is being brought up again in terms of it's a little bit more specific of, well, here's what they were doing with the crypto and here's the cryptos that they were using. The bigger thing is nation states were using crypto for oil. There was a period of time when there was no USD involved in purchasing and selling oil. And the other thing that I find interesting, at least for how it's explained here in this particular clip, they don't get into who was purchasing the oil. They don't call out none of the countries. Everything is about, well, Venezuela was circumventing the US sanctions by using crypto. That's it. It's not, well, blah 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 country was buying oil from Venezuela using blah 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 crypto. Everything is on Venezuela and how they were circumventing the the sanctions. And this is like, huh. Other interesting thing of note is that, like, this goes to show that commodities at the world trade level, bilateral trade level of nation states and stuff, and big size, I'm not gonna say corporates, but world, like, bilateral trade level, like, don't have to operate in USD. Like, sounds very far-fetched because of how, especially those of us here in the West, for how we understand the world. It's like, well, it's always been like that. It's always about the USD. But has it though? It's only been a couple of decades. Ain't even been 75 years. Well, no, maybe closer to 75, 80, but at the same time, like, this is the transitional stuff that we're talking about. Like, this was the ideal of what we were talking about back in the early days of Bitcoin. And lo and behold, the other part that makes it interesting is the way they did it was you would use the tether, because this tether had the stability, or it had more stability than the Bitcoin. So you use the tether as far as, like, all right, we'll sell it to you in this price, which would be equivalent to USD. It might be a penny or two up or down, but when you're buying like a couple, 1,000 gallons, like, hey, we're not necessarily too worried about it if it goes down a penny or two, because arguably that's going to be a little bit of a price discount. If it goes up, we know it's not going to go crazy up. It's not going to go 5 cent extra up. It's not going to go 10 cent extra up, because tether is, quote, pegged to the US dollar. At the time, that was what was going on. This is before we get into this whole thing going on with the Genius Act and the Treasury bond stuff that's about to come down the pike. This is back when it was just a USD thing. Point being is that this happened, and I would venture to say, and I don't know how many, like, other news stations or news cycles or other, like, crypto folks is paying attention to, like, how this is being brought up now, but I imagine at some point down the road we're going to see an introduction of crypto into the oil market, but it's going to be something that's like Western led. And the irony to me of that is, because, and hear me out, y'all. Hear me out. If the whole idea was we cannot have the American dollar be challenged, which I think arguably it's a farce. Arguably it's a farce. Why would we then go through such dramatic efforts to be the dominant player in the crypto or digital asset space? In my mind, as I'm saying this out loud, IMM in my mind, I think there is a setup being put together that at some point, under American, I'm gonna say American control, there is going to be a offering of oil in crypto. I don't know which one. It's going to be probably renamed as well, we're doing a digital asset, or it might be a CBDC, or whatever thing they're going to come up with. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be USD. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if this will happen during this administration, because there's some things that I've been hearing now about, like, this whole, oh, let's, we're going to go back into Venezuela and American companies and blah 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 are going to do this, and they're talking like to recoup the quote value or the money that was lost over time. We're not going to see that come back for like more than 10 years. That's 2-3 administrations away. What does that mean to the everyday American person? Because it's an oil that we can't even use in the American markets in our cars and trucks. Like, you know what? Let me not get sidetracked because I have a whole slew of thoughts about how this whole thing is played out. But that's not the point of today's segment, even though I do go into a good rant or two here and there. Yeah, I just wanted to point that out. And yes, it's the whole thing talking about how like the US will seize Venezuela's Bitcoin. But I really do think like the bigger thing to note is oil was being purchased and sold via crypto, namely Bitcoin and the stable coin called Tether. And it was going on for a good bit, and we basically quashed that. All right, this other joint that caught my attention a little bit. Cynthia Loomis. It's 2026. My position still hasn't changed on her. I don't think she's a friend to the space. I'm going to carry that through 2026 until I see something that's like blatantly readily identifiable. But I can be like, oh, okay, you know what? Bet that 100% is like a 180 from where I saw you before. Until then, I'm still on the bandwagon of she's not a friend of the space. So, nonetheless, let's read on this post. Why is U.S. government still liquidating Bitcoin when POTUS explicitly directed the assets to be preserved for a strategic Bitcoin reserve? We can't afford to squander these strategic assets while other nations are accumulating Bitcoin. I am deeply concerned about this report. So she's talking about something that Frank Carva posted, which goes, it seems that the SDNY and the DOJ have sold the Bitcoin that the Samurai devs paid as part of their plea deal, even though Executive Order 14233 mandates that the forfeitured Bitcoin be held in the U.S.'s strategic Bitcoin reserve. Other thing to note, we kind of out here doing sideways things and stealing other folks' Bitcoin. So, yeah. Um, the I guess the question is, who did it get sold to? No, and I haven't been paying attention to this. Yeah, I didn't even know that they actually they did a payout. Um, what? Louisiana, Texas. Could we find the oil at scale though? At scale, we can refine the type of oil that Venezuela had. And oh, here's the other thing. Yo, at my job, we be getting into all types of stupid debates to like serious debates. So, example of like I said, the earlier one about what a sanction is versus what a tariff is or a tax is. Um, that was one example. But oh man, where did I go? I lost the thought. It'll come back to me, bro. Flipping keys, sorry, plural. Thank you for the comment. When I remember what it was I was gonna say in response to your thing, I'll get there. But for now, I appreciate you for tapping in. Thank you. And happy new year, by the way. I hope you're crossing over into 2026 was peaceful and in good company. And so back to this joint right here, right? So like the way this whole setup looks is like our we're we're collecting different types of Bitcoin. Oh, and I got another story about Gavin Newsom out in California that kind of sideway relates to this. But how like all right, how do I say this? Trump has been saying things that contradict themselves once you give it enough time. So case in point, which would tie into this post here of like, hey, we're gonna be the top dogs in the Bitcoin crypto space because we're going to have a Bitcoin reserve, right? And then it turns into, well, you let this department, the DOJ and the SDNY, sell off the Bitcoin. But who do they sell the Bitcoin to? Don't worry about that part. All right, so where is the liquidation of the USD? Like, where's that going? And then what are you going to do with that? We ain't get that far. Don't worry about it. Like, on one side of it, he talks one way, and then on the other side of it, he talks another way. Case in point for something else that he did that, considering the recent events of the last like 72 hours, is really surprising. And no one remembers it, but I seen a clip pop up in my feed the other day, and it was him talking about how regime change doesn't work. It's a bad policy. It's messy. It's costly. And lo and behold, here we are in his second run, which then makes you wonder, like, well, what happened? Like, what conversation did you have that made you change your mind this go around? Because the first go around, you took every chance to say doing regime changes was a bad thing for the US to do. I don't know. I'm not in those conversations. That's way above my pay grade, my echelon. Like, it's just up there. All right, sorry I had to wet the whistle. All right. So yeah, I think that here would be another question, right? Let's say that the what's his name? It's not Fernando, but the developer who ended up being sentenced and is in jail and stuff right now, right? If I don't even know if to say if new evidence came out, because arguably it was a horse and pony show of a court to begin with. The whole idea was to make him an example. So like, no matter how good the evidence was, they were still going to give him some time either way. But then to be like, well, we're going to take everything you have and then sell it off. Like, and I know that there's been cases like this, through and through, where the government, as far as being the prosecutor side of something, when they want to go after somebody, they do everything under the sun to go after that person, which is the case here, right? But like, it then also makes me wonder with like the Ross Ulbricht situation. He was a coder. He wrote code that made a website be a virtual free market space where people could do various types of Mr. Baby ears, sorry, plural. What's going on with you? Oh yeah, it's a lot happening, bro. Like I had to, when I tell you the rabbit hole is deep, the rabbit hole is like a gorge, bro. What's the gorge? Is like the deepest gorge at the bottom of the ocean, as far as like what we consider, quote, the bottom of the ocean floor. Like it's crazy out there for how much stuff is going on, and then like we seemingly, because of overstimulation of information, the everyday person cannot agree on the facts of stuff. Like, I find that really disappointing, but disappointing is not the complete right word for what I'm thinking of right now, but like disheartening in that, oh man, again, my job, we be going back and forth about like the stupid stuff to the serious stuff to the like the here's how you see someone as a the labels of, are they red, are they blue, Are they liberal? Are they conservative? At my job, they swear I'm conservative, but it's just, no, they swear I'm liberal. Sorry. And in my particular section, they're like, "Oh yeah, he's the liberal of the group," and it's just like, nah, it's not that I'm liberal. It's just like I feel like I have a level of awareness into how this country operates, and I don't blind myself in the delusion of, well, every like this is just how it is, and like, well, we wouldn't do it like that. Like, I literally had somebody try to tell me that America promoted democracy in Latin America. And then when I started reading off the list of the years where we damn near messed in every country in Latin America, I didn't even make it halfway through the list. And I was like, yeah, but like, what is the point of they said some stupid counter thing. And it's just like, yo, like, that's what I'm talking about. Like we tell on ourselves. And I gave a couple of different examples of how like we'll do stuff in other regions of the world. We'll do stuff here to ourselves too at that. And then at some point, what we did comes to light. We told on ourselves, whether it be that some former, like DHS employee said something, Hillary Clinton says something on record, there's a congressional hearing, like, and it's just like, but we know what the stated facts are, and it came out of our government, and then somebody went on camera or did an interview and said something for political narrative, or it doesn't agree with like whatever that objective is, and it totally contradicts like the agreed upon facts that came out of our government. That's the stuff that be getting me. And what I find is most Americans, I'm not saying all Americans, I think we're very, and this is arguably most people in general, like we're cool with the fact that there are issues in the world, but we're more so on the like, that discomfort is not here in my face. It is not with me in terms of where it affects my actual daily life. Like, think about the number of people who when Black Lives Matter and all that stuff initially started, like, oh yeah, everybody down, everybody doing the do, and with you, and then it turns into what it turns into as far as how the organization side goes of it. But like, how many people put flags on their front yard, and how many people retweeted something, or like gave the heart on something, or thumbs up, or whatever. Like, that's our level of fight the power. That's where we are. It's 2026 now. Imagine what it's going to be like in 2020, at the end of 2026, 2027. Right? The lemon character, yeah. All right, I saw the thing. I thought it was funny. I was like, wait, what is going on? Yo, all right, sorry, I got distracted. I have to start figuring out how to I think I'm gonna end up doing the what's the thing called, um cup of coffee. That's the thing. Yeah, I think I'm gonna end up doing the cup of coffee thing on the end of, so for those who don't know, if you're new to this, I'm on the Gentleman of Cryptos channel, and then I have my own YouTube channel. And so on the Gentleman of Cryptos YouTube channel, any of the stuff that ends up getting pushed through that, I don't see in regards to like what you just did on Mr. Baby Ears. So I need to actually start working on that. That's interesting. And I think that's what I'm end up doing this year. There's a number of things I'm gonna try to implement within this year. For those who don't know, I primarily stay over here because this is where I built up most of the folks who like know me with relative to the space. Like when King and Zay was both together and they was going heavy on the channel, I'd always be in the chat and stuff. And then eventually they opened it up to let X amount of us like do some channel stuff. And you know, I'm one of the few people who is still on it like that. But I'm also going to try to put some other things in the work. Like another thing, and I'm going off tangent. Yes, I know. But another thing that I'm working on, and I'm going to get into this. I'll get is I am archiving all of my LinkedIn posts and what's the other one? The transcripts to the YouTube videos, and I'm archiving that, and we'll see how that plays out over like this year and next year because I still gotta like find all of the content. But that's some stuff that I'll bring up more and more as I push through. And we'll see how this plays out when it comes to the algos and the search LLMs and all of that stuff. I'm trying to play a digital game right now with the AI and the LLMs. We'll see what happens in like a year or two. But where was I going? The other point. Nope, I missed it. Wait, what happened? Limit exposure to dollar, crypto, stocks, precious metals, land, real estate. Hope y'all investing in precious metals right now. Bruh, the price of silver? What? My actual channel is called Trek with 2Ks. They have it labeled as something else. Hold on 1 second. Let me look for the thing. It is. That is not what I was looking for. Let me go back over it real quick. Hold on. So the other channel is Trek with 2Ks, just like how you see it spelled TREKKW, the number 2KS. Okay, that's what I was looking for. I'm like, what is going on? But yeah, so like I said, but I mainly just jump over on here because again, ironically, I've had the channel for a number of years. I just never bothered posted anything on it. And it was literally, I was land watching. I was in regards to the digital space of where I knew at some point the name would catch on. So like when it came to a number of social media platforms, I just automatically made the account, even though I wasn't sure how I was going to use that platform. So like the Twitter, the Twitch, Medium, because I was writing like longer form articles on Medium for a little bit, YouTube, Instagram, like there's even a Facebook joint, but I don't even use the Facebook. It's just a matter of I'm holding the digital landscape, the digital land space, so that it doesn't get picked up by someone else. That's the bottom line of that. And I can tell you that for when I first started using Trek with 2Ks, and the internet search side didn't work the way it does relatively now, but it was still a matter of like you could put in a name. Initially when I had started, it was just Trek with two, like TREKK, and easily searchable. I want to say like 2 to 3 years from 2018. So by like 2020, all of a sudden LinkedIn general search on Google all these other variations of Trek started popping up, and then I was seeing my content pop up in these mirror sites that were like mirror sites off of IG. And this is like 2020, 2019, going into 2020. When I started really pushing heavy on writing on LinkedIn, then all of a sudden it was accounts that were like some variation of Trek with 2Ks, where when you look now, it's X amount of BS accounts. But the three major accounts that have Trek in it is the bicycle company, the marketing company out of it's not Denver. I forgot where they're out of, and me. Those are the three major Trek accounts. Mine's is Trek with 2Ks. But when I first started on LinkedIn, it was literally only me and the two other companies I just named, the bicycle company Trek, the marketing company, and me. And now when you go on there and you put in TREKK, a bunch of other BS accounts pop up. If you put in TREKK W2KS, another bunch of variations of Trek with 2Ks pop up. It's just the way that the space is moving, man. And you know, it is what it is. And for the folks who weren't interested in the background as far as the name and all of that, I apologize. Let me get back on task because I want to go lay down. I'm done with this day. If anybody's curious, this is actually a animation created by Gemini Pro. Just to throw it out there, the last maybe year and change, I've been messing around with the different AIs, aka LLMs. So like Claude, Perplexity, Quinn, Kimi 2, Grok. What's the other one? There's another one. DeepSeek. I don't even touch Chat GPT anymore. Like everything that I do is between all of the other ones that I just named. Chat GPT to me, it isn't worth the squeeze. It ain't worth the price for sure. Especially when you have stuff like Kimi K2 and DeepSeek and Quinn, and then like you just cross-reference the stuff with Perplexity and Claude, like. And for the things that I'm doing, it works. I should put it in that context. For the things that I am doing, it works. But anywho, jumping back into this stuff. Let me close you out. Is it gonna do it? Is it gonna do it? All right. Here we go. So, where are you at? So Trump, on the 5th, goes America on his whole Truth Social thing, I believe it is, puts out America will be undisputed leader in digital assets. Nobody can do it better. It's a pure genius. Digital assets are the future. It is pure genius. Digital assets are the future, and our nation is going to, own it. We are talking about massive investments in big innovation. Now, in my mind, I feel like this is more of the setup that so far has kind of been the hallmark of how he's been moving. I appreciate Mr. Bunny Ears. Thank you. If you've noted, and I mean, granted, from the first administration to this administration, like we see he continues on the whole thing of it's about the deal. Can I make the deal? But the I don't know what to say. The bigger question is like, is the deal being made in good fairness? Is the deal practical for both sides? And then when you look at the whole like the position he's in and how he's talking about, quote, making the deal, it's like, all right, so you're making this deal, but is it going to be helpful to the average Joe and Jane American or like person within the US. And in my mind, the way the track record looks right now, he's not doing things that seemingly work for the best interest of like the American public. But you know, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I do try to pay attention to smarter folks in the space than me. Other thing to note, I'm moving on to the next post, Bitcoin Archive is talking and how DOJ seems to have violated President Trump's strategic Bitcoin reserve executive order by selling forfeitured BTC. And so apparently this asset liquidation agreement was done in the Southern District of New York. Yeah. So if anybody is interested, you can definitely look into the Bitcoin Archives post. He's very well. That person or persons are very notable in tracking like Bitcoin related stories. Definitely more diligent than I am. Just remember, I'm just some guy on the internet. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a lawyer. What's going on, my guy? Yo, oh man, yo, we gotta catch up, bro. I got another one. I got another PS story, man. One of my Joes did it to me yesterday, bro. Oh man. Woo, you can't make this stuff up, bro. Just for how these young ones just be doing stuff, and you just gotta look at them and be like, okay, all right, well, all right. I guess I'm gonna just have to give you this counseling when I see you. Like, but anywho, let me not get sidetracked because you here now. Point being is Bitcoin Archive is definitely more diligent in the things that are covered in their account. And if you are interested in taking, I guess, more of a deep dive into the historical things within Bitcoin or the things that have been going on around Bitcoin, it might be one of the Twitter accounts you might want to follow. Don't actually know who the hell this person is, just saying it's one of the accounts that I follow. And I also add that in the caveat of like when you have that like historical reference on stuff, like when you see the new stuff or quote the new stuff coming, you see the pattern and then it's just like, oh well, this ain't really new. This is just, you know, a pig with lipstick on it, or like, oh, this is just you slightly changing a word in the title, but it's the same either implementation, it's the same designed outcome, it's the same product just painted shiny, like, or it's just straight up a turd and you're trying to shine the shit like it's gold. Like, that's the crazy part of, well, I guess to say any industry, like if you're in the space long enough and you know, participate, or I don't know if to say I don't know if participate might be the right word for this, but like if you're in the space long enough and you are understanding and consuming and like information about how it works inside and out and like who the players are, or at least the major notable people are, like at a certain point you will end up, in my opinion, in my mind, see the patterns of behavior repeat, the different companies using the same strategy in a cycle to garner money from, you know, people, to pump and dump, to be grifters, like, and it's not just a crypto thing, it's not just a tech thing. What are you saying? The Southern District of New York has their tangles in a manner of nonsense. Bro, but when do they not, though? When does New York not have its hand in something? Like, yeah, like Southern District of New York is always a special case, man. This was basically the same thing of, what is it Trump says, current financial, okay. I mean, kind of the same thing that he was saying before, but with a couple of different extra words as far as the whole thing being fully on chain and blah blah blah. Which again, I'm a still stand. I'm a still stand on. I think that there is going to be a point, and again, I don't know if it's in this administration. Matter of fact, this might be my takeaway for tonight's episode. Either this administration or the next administration is going to accept crypto for oil. And I say that on the end of the proof of concept was Venezuela. We already seen, well, not all of us, because mad people weren't paying attention to when that was going on. But if you've been following me for at least a year, or at least back in 2025. I know I talked about it in 2025. I know I talked about it in 2024, and it probably was 2023 when it first came to my attention. If you've been following me in any one of those years, I've mentioned this story on how Venezuela was using the crypto to be able to accepting crypto to sell their oil. I think the U.S. is going to turn around, and if not in this administration, probably the next administration, and we're going to do the same thing. And the irony of the fucking matter is no one is going to remember that Venezuela did it first. And it's like, oh, look at the U.S. being all innovative and such. And look at the other countries that are participating with them. Because you damn sure know other Western countries are going to participate. Other Asian countries are going to participate. And it just the level of irony to the shit is just like disheartening, because this is just how we work. Anywho, what was the other thing you said? No, he did. Wait, what? CG. Ooh, Jesus Christ. Oh no. Yeah. I don't got none of those stories to tell. Thank God. I'm not even gonna show that one on the screen, my guy. I'm not even gonna show that one on the screen. If you aren't in the chat, you're not able to see this. Sorry, y'all. All right, so let me get into this one quick. I think I got like maybe 3 more things and then I'm like done. This is documenting Bitcoin. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang says Bitcoin mining is taking excess energy and storing it into a new form. It's called currency. And you take that currency wherever you like. You can take energy from one place and now you've transported it everywhere. It's the 2 things, because one, this is sort of like a Michael Saylor line. That's one part. But the other part is, and this is where like I can see how some people would take this and be like, oh yeah, that's wow, like that's so ahead of it, like that's new, that's innovative. That no. Here's the other thing to note, right? You do not take crypto any place with you. It is not a fiat, a physical peso, dollar, euro that fits in your wallet. When we talk about digital wallets in terms of a hot wallet, a cold wallet, what's the other one? The pseudo wallet. Like those are only your access keys to the account, the ledger account that says, oh, this address has this amount of a crypto associated with it. You are not physically taking the crypto anywhere. If there is internet connection, and technically, even if there is no internet connection, if you have even a what they call them, the dumb phones, you know, before smartphones, like the Ericsson, what is that, like the 1356 or 13 something? you could still do transactions using that level of technology. Technically, you could write out the whole computation, but who's really going to do that? The point being is, this sounds like, Jensen is saying something totally cool and techie and technical and innovative. And it's like, no, he's actually wrong as fuck. How about that? He's wrong as fuck. Why? Because you don't actually take crypto, or Bitcoin in particular, you don't take it with you anywhere. You're taking your keys with you if you have a wallet of some sort. Well, if you have a self-custodial wallet, you're taking your keys to access the ledger, but you are not actually taking the crypto with you. Even if you put it on a QR code that connects to your wallet address, even if you had a cold storage wallet, the crypto, the Bitcoin, is not actually in the wallet. That's all I'm saying. And then the other thing to note, they actually just cut what he talks about in relation to crypto, but he was using the selling point on, or this talking point about Bitcoin to get to his actual talking point, which was about AI. When you actually listen to the clip, I'm not going to play the clip, that's what actually goes on in the whole clip. He's using crypto as a simile into getting to talk about AI and how that's a different form of currency. Again, we put these people on pedestals and we're not even in the same realm of what is going on for how they operate. And they say stuff that sounds cool, but they're wrong as fuck. Again, that whole, like, are you shining a turd? Or are you just repeating some stuff and giving it a couple of new phrases? I don't know. But anywho, other one, watch a guru. Crypto Caesar David Sachs meets with senators to help advance crypto market structure legislation. So you have a lawyer, because David Sachs' background is he's a lawyer, and he's meeting with other lawyers. Anytime you get lawyers together to talk about something, it means you end up losing something. And I don't know what legislation he's going to come up with. I'd have actually been more curious on what particular senators he was talking to. But this is how they wanted to captionize that he's in meetings and he's having a more direct influence in how the crypto space will look going forward in the American market. Again, lawyers talking to lawyers. Lawyers talking to lawyers. All right, which one was this? Just let me see. Yeah, so there's a whole thing about how the U.S. will potentially seize Venezuela's crypto. I mean, we stole, what was that? The joint that was out of Thailand. Was it that one? There was a hack scenario that happened that I can't remember the reference point of, like, where in the East it was. But for the things that I've heard and in other conversations, that was us taking somebody's crypto. And when I say us, I mean, like, American government played the hand in it. Okay, so I'm gonna close out on this story. If you don't know who this guy is, this is Gavin Newsom. He is the governor of California, and apparently has signed a bill allowing the state to transfer custody of any Bitcoin or crypto held on an exchange after 3 years of inactivity. Under the law, inactive accounts on centralized exchanges are, and it gets into this whole other thing. Bitcoin Junkie, that was the account that originally posted the thing. Here's what gets me. Oh, shout outs to John E. Deaton. Lawyer guy, really thorough and smart. His account, definitely, he posts the more professional but, like, insightful things about crypto. I may not agree with the whole positions, but nonetheless, shout outs to him on this post. So getting into this thing with Gavin Newsom, right? We're gonna smoke on some packs on this one. Because, and I didn't jump into the actual account of what Bitcoin Junkie actually like covered in their article of it. But here's kind of where some of my concerns are. So how does that work? Like, if I don't have a bank account connected to it, one, if I'm not a resident of or a citizen of the California state, or what happens if I moved out of the state? What happens if you got incarcerated and you were incarcerated for more than 3 years? Like, what happens if someone went and again, this is targeted at specifically centralized exchanges, right? But what happens, like, there's a number of scenarios of where I can see how someone would, like, you can have an inactive account for 3 years. I literally just got maybe 3 different emails of not crypto related things, but of accounts that I've had where it's like, hey, if you still want to keep your account, log in within 45 days. Apparently, that's going across the board right now within the digital realm of like having accounts for stuff. A number of companies have definitely changed their terms of service policy, and we're like, hey, if you're not doing anything with us, we're not going to hold your stuff anymore. I don't know if that means they just completely dump whatever you had with them and they just or like erase it all out, it's all deleted. But I know that a number of accounts that I've had online for different types of online platforms, I've been getting emails. And in my mind, for some of them, I'm like, do I really care about that one? Not really. You know, I ain't even worried about it. And then one or two of them, I'm like, all right, let me log into that one and, you know, get that, show that activity to keep the account. Because here's another thing to note, and I think this is part of why companies have been, I'm gonna say, updating their terms of service for inactive accounts. Because one of the things that accounts, depending on, well, inactive accounts is a pro of it. I don't know if it counts as, how am I saying this? Bottom line is, the older your account is on any platform, it shows a level of provenance. Provenance? I don't know. I don't think provenance is the right word. But the idea is that the older your account is, the more, quote, trust your account has to it because of how long it's existed. Not necessarily that you did anything with it, but that it has existed. So, for example, if I try to sell, and I'm randomly making up a scenario, if you try to sell a, let's say, a crypto account on I'm gonna pick Kraken. Not picking on Kraken, just happened to be the name of the exchange that popped into my head. And let's say I have a 2-year-old account versus a 8 or 10-year-old account. The 10-year-old account would be more valuable if you were trying to gray market it, black market it, than the 2-year account. Why? Because as far as the system sees, well, this account has been with us for so long. Also, depending on what that platform does, and again, I'll just use Kraken as an example, you probably have a higher limit on how much transactions you can do on your volume of transaction and then your dollar amount of transaction in comparison to the 2-year account. Just me being me right now and how my brain is being scratched, I think that there's a couple of things going on. And again, I'm just putting this together as I say it out loud because I've noted that I've literally received a number of emails from different online platforms saying, hey, you haven't been active for a while. And I'm talking about like accounts where I ain't been active for like 4 or 5 years. Okay? I'm just getting the email now saying, "Hey, we about to delete this account." I think we're being set up for something further on down the road. And the fact that this is going on out in California, again, I still have some questions about the practicalities of this in terms of what happens if the person got incarcerated? What happens if the person moved out of the state? Is it solely for the citizens of California? Like, I have the driver's license and I'm registered in California versus what happens if I'm just there for school? Hey, what happens if I'm there for school and I started at my freshman year, right? I put the account in my freshman year and I didn't finish school. I made it to like the junior year. Forgot about it first 3 months of freshman year. Make it all the way to sophomore year, junior year, and then I leave. Like, what happened? I lost the information. It's questionable to me how this is going to play out in the practicalities, and I wonder if this already hasn't been happening, but now here's like the official legal pathway for it to happen, because we already know that law enforcement will have exchanges, liquidate positions, or transfer the crypto out to their under their control, right? I'm just saying, y'all, it's a weird place to be right now when you see the stuff that's coming out, and it's the rest of this administration is gonna be fun. Again, look what we started off in the first 3 days. So, but anywho, that's all I got. Yeah, it's a ramble, a fair amount of this, but I imagine that like some of y'all will come back at some point, or this is gonna play out at some point somewhere, and be like, "Oh yeah, I remember that guy said blah blah blah," and it's like, I guess he wasn't like too far off, or I could be way the fuck off. Again, I'm not a CPA, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a fortune teller, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just some crypto person that's like been around the space for a minute, and I might not be the smartest person in the room, but I try to pay attention to definitely the smarter people than me in the room. And yeah, that's what be getting these Twitter posts to scratch my brain. That's all I got for y'all on this Tuesday night. Life is lifing, and I hope y'all had a good intro to the week as Monday, and hopefully everybody crossed over into the new year, at least in good company, right? Good food, good laughs. If you don't drink, it's okay, but at least you was in good company. Hopefully, folks had an uneventful year. Sometimes having an uneventful new year is not a bad thing. I was literally telling one of my Joes that yesterday. I was like, sometimes it's cool to not have an eventful New Year. It's just you in the house chilling, being safe, minding your business. There was a story. What was that? Yeah, for New Year's, out in Switzerland, like 40 people passed celebrating New Year's. 40 people in a club, like not how they was expecting the crossing to go at all. But as I say, man, life be life. And so from one human to the next, the best thing that I can wish y'all is to be in a safe place, in a safe space, and with good company. And the week is underway. And hopefully y'all have a productive over busy week. And that's all I got for y'all this night. I'm gonna work to do better. So for next Monday, and I'm gonna have to change my time that says 8 to like 9-ish, because I definitely be getting distracted when I start messing around with this. But anywho, y'all, have a good one. I'm gonna get out of here and call this business a day. I just realized I did not do that. I'm Trek with 2Ks.